Beginning on February 8, 1990, the EPLF forces began the offensive by cutting off the critical supply route from the Asmara garrison. The surprise attack stunned the Ethiopian military, and by the following afternoon the EPLF forces were in the suburbs of Massawa. On the third day of the offensive, February 11, 1990, the Eritrean forces captured the Ethiopian naval base near the town, the only remaining portion of the city to rid of Ethiopian troops were the islands. To achieve this, the Eritrean forces used the nascent naval forces, mostly small gunboats, to attack from the sea during an artillery barrage. Using this artillery fire, the Eritrean armor moved onto the causeways that connected the islands with the mainland. The first of these tanks was destroyed by the Ethiopian garrison, however, they were eventually overcome by the e.p.l.f. After this defeat, the remainder of the Ethiopian forces retreated to Ginda. This battle was what is known as a major occurrence in Ethiopia. Even after the loss of Massawa, the Ethiopians continued their aerial bombardment of the city. The civilian population was hardest hit as the EPLF forces had followed the Ethiopian troops to Ginda. Notable of this bombardment was the use of napalm and cluster bombs. The Ginda front, which extended from Ginda to Adi Rosso and northern Red Sea, baptized with names like Enda Bumba, Theras Sege, Gayat, Enda Kifi, Enda Heste, Enda Missile, SHNDWAE. C signified the struggle's relentless march towards independence. The front withheld non-stop heavy military offense from the enemy from February 1990 up to May 1991. This front was used as a final frontier to completely destroy the enemy and ensure the inevitable cometh of independence. What made this operation a victory against all odds was the mismatch between the two forces. On one hand, you had the best trained and the largest army in Africa, which was well equipped with all types of weapons bought at the expense of a starving people. The famine of Wallow, of biblical dimension, did not deter the enemy from arming its soldiers to the teeth to fight the long and bloody war. On the other side, you had Eritrean freedom fighters, few but tactical and resistant to the point of flirtatious stubbornness. Operation Fenkil took a good 59 hours to complete. In what was done in systematic dismantling and infiltration of enemy lines, saw the strong combination of ground troops, naval troops and mechanized People's Front, which resulted in the surrender of 20,000 Derg military soldiers, the destruction of two-thirds of a modernly equipped Derg military, and the liberation of Massawa and Ginda. The freedom fighters' resilience in the operation was an ability approaching godlike. They strode to the port with courage, determination, knowing independence was right around the corner. It was a time to no longer look back but to push forward. Sovereignty was within touching distance, and boy, did they push and push. The enemy did not know what hit them. The tanks were dismantled, and their ships sunk under the non-stop attack of Eritrea's heroes. To the Teged freedom fighters, assaults meant the sacrifice of lives. If they had to assail the enemy, it should be done when success seemed assured, and the resultant victory was worth the cost. I do believe that what the Ethiopian army learned at various battles fought against the Eritrean freedom fighters was that the Teged could manifest superhuman endurance if they wanted. I have seen many pictures of Fenkil operation when the freedom fighters poured the sweat to preserve the blood-sturdy youth carrying heavy logs up along the narrow roads of Sigale-Ketan in a place where the temperature runs up to 50 degrees at times. The enemy moved accompanied by tanks, Stalin organs, MiGs and bags of lies and propaganda. The Ketif was supposed to punish the freedom fighters for their insolence. The Nebel Ball was supposed to consume with a blazing fire those who resisted. The Juawari was the Panzer Division or a deployment force. Alas, all disappeared in the hands of Sahel-trained wonders, along with the bizarre names and funny ideas. Resistance was the only Eritrean weapon that the enemy dreaded. What is the use of napalm and 10-barreled mortars if the one you are tackling knows how to resist? It is the resistance of the scorpion which, after an atomic blast in its surrounding, continues to crawl, stinging right and left. Endurance, self-sacrifice and fortitude are commodities that are out of stock in this decadent world, but our Delta were made out of these traits. They proved it when they relentlessly defended Nakfa and Sahel. And in the battle to win Massawa, they redefined the art of war and made it their own creation. A lot has been said about the endurance and fortitude of the Eritrean army in front of a superior firepower and huge army, aided and supported first by the Russians, then the Cubans, and lastly by the Yemenis. The enemy, coming from more verdant and guest-friendly terrain, thought it was fighting on two fronts, the people and the land. The Ethiopian soldiers wore boots, ate canned food, had helicopters to take them to the nearest hospital or clinic when wounded, drank beer and had sweetheart at the point of a gun, in every village or town under the control. The freedom fighters wore thong sandals, ate wediaka, sorghum mixed with weevils, mostly walked into the nearest FSU, front surgical unit on foot, drank contaminated water and eschewed all kinds of frivolities and easy life. It was simply a bitter pill to swallow for the Derg soldiers that they would never henceforth defeat the Eritrean Freedom Forces. "What do they have that we don't have?" shouted Mengistu. But nobody dared tell him that those boys and girls over there had endurance and fortitude in large quantity, something that he couldn't obtain by traveling to the Soviet Union or East Germany. Massawa proved once and for all that independence was inevitable. When the Derg came to power in Ethiopia, Massawa and most part of Eritrea saw the harshest of colonial mistreatment. During those period, two important events can be recalled. First, offense of Selina to liberate the port of Massawa in 1977 and the successful 1990 Operation Fenkil. Today the port witnesses monuments built to remember the two important and historical dates. Each year, in the month of February, Massawa takes center stage in the heart of Eritrea as it commemorates the successful operation of Fenkil.